Meet Minoru, a guy who craves the shadowy appeal of being a hero behind the scenes. But after a fatal accident, he's reborn as Cid in a fantasy world. Now, he leads the secret Shadow Garden organization, using his cunning and a team of gorgeous allies to outsmart every villain in his path. The story starts by introducing us to a beautiful and super rich girl named Isekai'd, who wakes up in the morning and leaves for school in her expensive car. You see, Isekai'd is an actress on top of being a high school student, and everyone is smitten by her. However, there's only one student at school who is not interested in her in the least, and even calls her by the wrong name. Minoru Kageno is indifferent to everyone, not just Isekai'd. Isekai'd didn't like the fact that he never gave her attention or didn't even look at her properly. But why does Isekai'd try so hard to be in everyone's good books? Well, it's because of a tragic event that happened back then when she was a middle schooler. It was the start of her career as a star, but a stalker abducted her and was going to force himself upon her. However, she was saved before he could do anything. But that incident affected her so much that she created a fake persona of being a perfect girl. Anyway, after school, Isekai'd had to walk home as her driver was not there to pick her up. He was getting beaten by a bunch of gangsters. The same gangsters kidnapped her as she was walking back from school. As she was losing consciousness, she noticed Kageno standing at a distance. Isekai'd wakes up in a warehouse where she is about to be taken advantage of. However, a man breaks into the warehouse, introducing himself as stylish Russian Slayer. He beats up both men, frees Isekai'd, and leaves. It is revealed that he was none other than Kageno. The next day at school, Kageno leaves Isekai'd speechless by calling her by the correct name. You might think this is the start of a sweet relationship, but it's not. Kageno ends up dying after getting hit by a truck and is transported to a fantasy world as a hero, with a bunch of beautiful girls as his subordinates. He's excited to start his new life as the kind of hero he always wanted to be. Kageno was born into a noble household as Cid Kageno and has an elder sister named Claire. The family he was born in pumped out dark knights for generations, but Cid's skills were not on par with Claire's, making everyone feel like Claire was going to be the successor, but you see, Cid was just pretending to be weak. At night, he turns into a hero named Shadow who hunts bandits. One night, he finds a weird-looking blob-like creature and takes it with him, shooting it up with magic every single day. One day, the blob turned into a beautiful elf. She was actually cursed and turned into a blob, but now she has no memory of her past. Cid finds this chance perfect for making the elf his subordinate and pulls a ridiculous story to convince her. She's convinced and is ready to work with Cid. He names her Alpha and is ready to start an organization named Shadow Garden with her. 3 years passed by just like that, and it was time for Claire to leave for the Midgar Academy. However, before she leaves, she gets abducted. It was time for Cid to take action. In the past 3 years, Alpha had recruited a bunch of other girls to their organization. She immediately commences the search to find Claire and learn that her kidnapper belongs to the cult of Diablos, Viscount Grease. When he learns about Cid, he shows a keen interest in him, but Claire breaks her chains and starts attacking him, mentioning how she'll kill everyone close to him if he lays a hand on her beloved brother. But Grease knocks her out instantly. After that, he's informed of intruders in the vicinity. It was the Shadow Garden who got rid of the kidnappers. The next morning, Claire walks home and has no idea that Cid was the one who rescued her. After a while, she leaves for the academy as if nothing had happened. Cid looks forward to leaving for the academy, but he has to wait 2 more years for that. Alpha then reveals that she was also going to leave him along with the other girls. Alpha had told Cid that she and the girls will be expanding operations and fighting the cult of Diablos. And that's why it was necessary for them to leave. 2 years pass just like that, and Cid finally heads to the academy. There, he decides to lay low and befriends 2 other guys named Skell and Poe, who look pretty average. At the academy, he comes across Alexia, who was getting confessed to by an average guy. Cid also confesses to her just to make sure that he stays a background character. Also, he lost a bet to his friends and just had to do it. But Alexia ruins his plans by actually accepting his confession. Cid is in the spotlight now because the news of him and Alexia becoming a couple spreads like wildfire in the academy. Cid learns that Zenon, the Academy's fencing instructor, is the one that Alexia is engaged to, but she doesn't like him at all. Alexia confesses that she wanted to be Cid's girlfriend for the time being because she didn't want to marry Zenon. He didn't want to get involved with Alexia's matters, but when she offered him some money, he turned into her dog. One day when Cid asked Alexia why she did not want to marry Zenon, she answered that Zenon had no flaws and she judges people by their flaws. She believes that there's no human without flaws. 2 weeks pass just like that, and Cid keeps playing the boyfriend with Alexia. While heading home, they talk about Alexia's fencing style. Cid mentions how he likes her dancing style, but Alexia mentioned how her sister Iris had said something like that to her as well. She gets annoyed by what Cid had said to her for some reason, and she leaves. The next day, Cid learns from Zenon that Alexia did not return to her dorm last night, for Alexia was kidnapped by a mad scientist from the cult of Diablos who wanted her blood to resurrect a demon. Meanwhile, Cid is getting tortured and is being questioned about Alexia's whereabouts since he was the last person with her when she went missing. Cid pretends to be in pain, but in reality, he has developed great tolerance to pain, and their torture means nothing to him. After 5 days, Iris ordered the students to release Cid. When Cid goes home, Alpha visits him with big news. She and the girls had made progress in investigating the cult and even increased their organization's influence. Cid and Alexia then decide to rescue Alexia. On his way, he comes across a bunch of knights who enjoy torturing him, but he quickly kills them. Meanwhile, the mad scientist injects Alexia's blood into a mutant who turns into a massive demon and kills him. The demon frees Alexia and breaks out of the prison. As Alexia leaves, she comes across Zenon, who reveals himself to be the man behind Alexia's abduction. Alexia tried to attack him, but he overpowered her and punched her in the face. That's when Cid appears from the shadows. Zenon introduces himself as one of the cult's members and gets ready to face Cid. Meanwhile, Iris tries to fight the demon that had been wreaking havoc in the city, but her attacks are not effective at all. That's when Alpha appears and kills the demon, putting it out of its misery. Going back to Cid, he overpowers Zenon, and Alexia is impressed by his sword skills, not realizing he is actually Cid. As a last resort, Zenon swallows some demon pills to get stronger, but Cid hits him with an extremely powerful and flashy nuclear bomb attack. When everything gets back to normal, Alexia is inspired to master her own unique sword style. Iris finds Alexia and hugs her as she is extremely worried about her. The next morning, Alexia meets up with Cid in school and offers him to become her real boyfriend. However, Cid declines but gets punished by Alexia for how rude he is. We're taken to the Shadow Garden, where the girls discuss how amazing Cid was during his fight with Zenon. But their attention soon diverts to a group who had been committing crimes using their organization's name. On the other hand, Iris is interested in investigating the cult of Diablos and puts Glenn and Marco in charge of the investigation. She only had a strange artifact as a clue. Later, Cid accidentally bumps into a pink-haired bookworm named Sherry while walking. We're taken to a man who claims to be a part of the Shadow Garden while killing an innocent citizen. Meanwhile, Alexia asks Sherry if she can decipher the artifact that she had confiscated from the cult of Diablos. Sherry's father urges her to investigate the artifact as it would benefit her. Alexia also wanted to help her sister with the investigation. On the other hand, Cid and his friends go to a store run by Gamma, a member of the Shadow Garden. He's impressed with Gamma's dedication and applauds her. He's surprised to see the amount of gold coins Gamma was able to earn, but played it cool on the outside. Gamma also introduces Cid to the newest member of their organization named New. Cid then left after getting some chocolate and stealing a gold coin from Gamma's stack. As Cid and his friends are running towards their dorm, Cid senses danger and tells his friends to go ahead while he goes to Alexia, who is fighting a bunch of fake Shadow Garden members. Cid scares them away, and Alexia demands a few answers from him. But Cid tells her to stay out of it and follows the enemies. However, New arrives there to take care of the matters and tells Cid to return. Later, Alexia tells Iris about the fake Shadow Garden and how they're using the organization's name to commit crimes. The next day, Cid notices Sherry reading a book in the library. He casually gives her a box of chocolates and leaves. At home, Sherry's father told her that the chocolates she got were probably a love confession and she should answer the guy who gave her the chocolates. He then asks her about her progress in researching the artifact. Sherry answers that she had just started deciphering it. At school, Nu visits Cid and informs him about the cult using strong drugs on people to brainwash them into doing whatever they want. One of them is Rex, who has been lurking around the city. Cid is not really listening to her and starts talking about the sword tournament that is going to happen in the academy. Nu takes his words out of context and believes that he will fight Rex. The sword tournament starts and Cid finds himself facing Princess Rose. Cid decided to not show his true skills and let Rose attack him until the referee saved him. Rose was still impressed by Cid's resolve. After the tournament, Cid comes across Sherry, who is worried about his injuries. He doesn't really remember her, but decides to hear her out. Sherry hands him a bunch of cookies that she baked herself and wants Cid to be her friend. Our boy agreed to be her friend without much thinking. The next day, Sherry visits Alexia and asks her about her relationship with Cid. Alexia told her the truth about their relationship, which relieved Sherry, and she left. After 5 days, Cid comes back to school as he is completely healed. Rose visits his class and announces the student council election. However, Cid senses someone putting a barrier around his school. He tries using magic, but fails. Suddenly, a bunch of shady men break into their classroom and attack Rose, but Cid takes a hit to protect her. He falls onto the ground and is covered in a pool of blood. Cid loses his consciousness after being attacked with a sword, and all the students are taken to the auditorium. Meanwhile, Cid resurrects himself using magic. On the other hand, Rex breaks into Sherry's room in order to get the artifact, but Glenn and Marco help Sherry get away. Cid goes to the rooftop and kills a bunch of imposters without anyone knowing. He even protects Sherry. As Sherry is going up the stairs, she accidentally falls but is saved by Cid. She tells Cid that it was the Eye of Avarice that had been blocking their magic. When it absorbs all the magical energy, it will result in a massive blast that will destroy everything. Luckily, the artifact that Sherry had was the control unit of the Eye of Avarice. Sherry plans to head to the auditorium after decoding the artifact, and Cid decides to help her get the tools that she forgot in her room. Meanwhile, Rex briefly talks to Gaunt, the mastermind behind all of this. After he leaves, Rex is attacked and killed by Cid. Meanwhile, Nu goes to check on Marco and Glenn. Glenn bites the dust and Marco survives. Just when Nu was about to kill him, Cid walks in and casually tells her to not do anything until Sherry has it all figured out. Cid goes to Sherry after collecting her tools, and she gets to work immediately. After a lot of effort, Sherry is done decoding the artifact. She then goes to a hidden tunnel that connects to the auditorium with Cid. It is revealed that after Sherry's mother died, her father took her in as his foster daughter. She felt grateful to her father and wanted to help him how he helped her when she was struggling. Sherry arrives at the auditorium, activates the artifact, and throws it towards Gaunt. The barrier around the school vanished, and the students were free to use magic as much as they wanted. Cid also arrives at the auditorium under the disguise of Shadow with his girls, and they slaughter the enemies. Gaunt escapes the scene and sets the school on fire. In an interesting turn of events, Gaunt turns out to be Sherry's adoptive father. He told Cid about his life story. He used to be a great swordsman, but his health started deteriorating. He needed to get his hands on the Eye of Avarice that Sherry's mother happened to be researching on. He then killed her as she didn't want to research the artifact and took Sherry in. Because he wanted her to continue the research in her mother's stead now that he has both the Eye of Avarice and the artifact, there was nothing stopping him to get what he wanted. However, Cid was still much stronger than the old man, and after he puts up a fight, Cid kills him. Sherry shows up and starts crying because her father was brutally slain. It turns out that Shadow is a wanted man now and is accused of mass murder, kidnapping, arson, and robbery. Gamma revealed to Alpha that Shadow was willing to take the blame, but believes that it won't change anything. Meanwhile, Sherry bids farewell to Cid as she was going abroad to study. When Cid asks her what she was planning to do abroad, she replies that it's a secret and leaves. The summer break started early, and Cid decided to stay at his dorm instead of going home, because he had nothing to do there. He gets a letter from Alpha and decides to work on his next mission that happens to be in Lindworm. Meanwhile, Alexia also plans on visiting Lindworm and visits Gamma's store to buy some clothes. There, she tries on revealing clothes despite Iris's objection. Meanwhile, Rose visits Cid in a hospital because he had apparently miraculously survived after getting attacked in order to protect Rose. She was still under the impression that Cid protected her because he loved her and decided to tag along with him to Lindworm. During their trip, Rose told Cid what he needs to do in order to get her father's approval, but Cid takes her words out of context and thinks that she was trying to convert him to a local religion. As they arrive at Lindworm, they come across Beta, and Cid learns that Rose was a big fan of hers, as she was a great writer. Beta was known as Natsumi, the writer in Lindworm. Beta hands Cid a book with the details of their mission on it. Meanwhile, Alpha discovers the dead body of Archbishop Drake inside the church and wonders who murdered him. On the other hand, a guy attempted to attack Cid but is killed swiftly by Epsilon. Cid then tells her that he will proceed with his own plans before leaving. Cid and Alexia unexpectedly come across each other at a hot spring in Lindworm. Alexia revealed that she was there as a special guest for the goddess's trial, and Cid was there for a fun event that happened to be an annual fighting ritual where ancient warriors awakened to compete against each other. Later, the trial started, and the first contestant, Tapa Batarius, called out for a warrior, but no one showed up. The same thing happened with the next challenger, Next Tin Line, and many others, like Steel Ain't Happenin'. During the goddess trial, some contenders couldn't summon ancient warriors until Anarose succeeded. Cid was getting bored, hoping it would end soon. But then, the announcer called him out as the next challenger. Cid decided to go by the name Shadow, and for once a spirit to show herself. She's revealed to be Aurora, who is the Witch of Calamity, the most powerful witch in history, as Beta recognized. Nelson confirmed this, but Alexia disagreed, thinking Shadow is the strongest man as he was able to summon Aurora. They battled in the arena, enjoying the fight. Shadow carefully watched Aurora's moves and defeated her with a single slash. The barrier breaks and a magic door appears in the middle of the arena. Cid tries to ignore the door, but it keeps following him. He then decides to enter the door. Meanwhile, Nelson announces the cancellation of the trial and orders everybody to leave. But the Shadow Girls appear and enter the door along with Nelson. Alexia and Rose decide to follow them as well. As they enter the sanctuary, Alpha explains to everybody that the left arm of Diablos was sealed there after he was defeated by the hero Oliver. She also revealed that she was the descendant of that hero. Meanwhile, Cid comes across Aurora when he enters, and they talk about how they both ended up in the same place, which turns out to be a memory prison. Aurora shares that if they can destroy its core, she can be set free. They decide to team up for this task, but Aurora mentions that she'll disappear once she's free. On the other hand, Alpha reveals that Olivier was implanted with Diablo's cells as a child and had a mission to get more cells from the demon. But the cult could only make flawed pills from the cells. These pills gave power and stopped aging, but they had side effects like hair loss and needed to be taken yearly. Nelson then admits he's part of the Knights of Rounds, a group with just 12 members due to limited pills. Alpha thinks the key to better pills is in the demon's arm and Olivier's bloodline. Nelson, revealing himself as Nelson the Avaricious, powers up, but Delta attacks him immediately. He survives and is ready to fight the girls. Delta defeats Nelson's copies, but senses something is wrong. He reveals the sanctuary drains power as they get closer to its center, while his power grows. Meanwhile, Cid and Aurora enter a battlefield memory, where the dead attack them. Aurora tries to end it by killing her younger self, but the sanctuary rejects them. They think they'll return to the first room if they die. On the other hand, Epsilon's group finds a sick person who disappears when touched, likely a materialized memory. They use Polaroid cameras from Ita to capture images in an archive about the possessed. They realize they could have been possessed without Shadow's help. Meanwhile, Cid ends the zombie attack by killing young Aurora, and they reach the sanctuary center. Unable to open the door another way, they take a break. He talks with Aurora about destroying the magic core, and she wants to be free from the prison of memories. Cid hopes the hero will come for the sword, but Nelson arrives and sends Olivier to attack them. He prepares to fight Olivier, recognizing her strength. During the fight, Cid's sword breaks, and he gets hurt. Aurora steps in, and Nelson offers to spare Cid if she helps. Cid refuses, and Nelson orders Olivier to kill him. But he opens his other eye, which he had kept closed all this time.